Pardon my disheveled look, but we're building a retaining wall in the backyard, punching another item on the man card, so to speak. And I just got some interesting news. The social justice warrior run comic shop that banned a customer simply for wanting to pre-order a particular comic book, a non-political comic book, is feeling the cold steel of capitalism. And if you don't remember about Magic Mirror comics, this was the situation.
Okay, I know, that's fine. I just want to get your answer. So you just don't want money, okay.
So this was a customer, his name Dylan, who was arriving to pick up his pull list, which is really comic book shops survive on a pull list. These are pre-orders. If you read comics all the time, you have a pull list, and you're saying, okay, I want every issue of these 5 or 6 or 7 comics. I'm going to pre-order every month, and then I come in and I pick up my box, pay for these comics. These are your basically subscription customers. They are the most reliable. Now, after kicking out a customer simply for wanting to pre-order a comic, they of course claimed victim. Now remember, here we have the comic book shop. So any of these other publishers on here putting out that Diversity in Comics book, which is a book about retired military folks, has nothing to do with anything, you know. But if I'm wrong, I'm going to 1000% drag any publisher interacting with them in professional capacity. Respect. I count on doing the same. Here we have the owner of that comic book shop, Magic Mirror. Now, I want to say, there is another comic book shop there called Mill Creek Comics. And everybody has said to me, the owner is awesome, the owner is apolitical. So please, if people were confusing Mill Creek Comics with Magic Mirror Comics, Magic Mirror is in Mill Creek, but Mill Creek Comics good, Magic Mirror, well, you're about to find out. Here's the owner. Drag and dunk as loudly as possible, and I'm real loud, right? So this, of course, was spun into them being victims. Our shop, Magic Mirror Comics, is currently the target of a coordinated harassment campaign by, quote, anti-diversity activists, employing intimidation and misinformation. They are attempting to push women and minorities out of the comic industry. None of this happened, of course. It was just backlash to the owner of this comic book shop, which they have every right to not carry whatever comic books they want for whatever reason they don't want to carry them. Don't get me wrong. But I have every right to call them stupid for turning down money just because they don't like the person who wrote the comic book. Your job is to serve your customers. I'm just, I guess, the pure capitalist. I don't really care. If you're willing to buy it and I can make money on it, I will sell it to you. Of course, they say, these activities are part of a coordinated campaign reacting to the action we took on behalf of one of the store's community. Namely, we were alerted by another shop owner that a customer of our store had identified the store's location and expressed animosity towards its management in a public online forum. This is a lie. If they knew this, if they could prove this, why wouldn't they have screenshots of that, right? By people who hold anti-diversity. Well, based on Heather McFarlane, the owner, she sounds anti-diversity to me, especially diversity of thought. Now, when you have a business that is completely run by social justice warriors, of course, it's nearly impossible to make money. And if you didn't know, this comic book shop actually had to run a GoFundMe to change locations. The comic book shop is so unprofitable, they had to move to a cheaper location, and they couldn't afford to do it. Now, it's an interesting tactic, turning down business, of course, to me. If you can't even afford to pay your own bills, turning down customers seems really odd to me, especially when, who cares, right? Now, fast forward. This broke in the end of May, early June, right? Now we are 1 month later, and I have some interesting information from insiders at this comic book shop. I've got to hide my screen now because it contains some personal. Here's the thing. Magic Mirror Comics is located in one of the most expensive locations you could have outside of Seattle itself. Great business decision by great business minds, obviously. They were already bleeding cash. They had actually just convinced a friend to sink $20,000 of their own money into the business to keep it viable. Then your video goes up 1 week later. Fast forward a few weeks, and the rumor at the shops around here is that Magic Mirror is telling their customers that their boxes are being moved to Subspace Comics, another SJW shop close to the University District. It looks like you killed their store. Keep doing what you're doing. Is there a way to support you since you've been banned from Patreon? By the way, there is a way. You can just go to thequartering.com and back that way, should you choose. You can do the exact same thing you do on Patreon, except Patreon doesn't get to keep any money. So this was the cold. Now, if this is true, it sounds very likely given the business titans that these folks sound like. The fact that they had to go fund me to change the location of their comic book shop. The fact that now they have a friend putting in $20,000 more into their business. This business is failing, and they actually had the unmitigated gall, the absolute stupidity to turn a customer away because he supported another comic book artist that they didn't like. This is a perfect example of what happens when you let your ideology rule you, right? This is score one for capitalism. This is Solo, a Star Wars story, losing $100 million. When will people learn? I don't care if they ever do, as long as the market keeps working itself out and these shops and the people who are making these types of decisions continue to get eliminated.